Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation podcast, where we discuss the exciting innovations that lie ahead for organizational ground transportation. Each episode, we cover topics tailored to those resolving transportation-related challenges and provide tips, tools, and trends that will inspire you to stay ahead of the curve. And now, here's your host, Daniel Perez.
Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Flint Holbrook. How are we doing today, Flint?
Pretty good, Daniel. How are you doing?
Excellent, Flint. Thank you very much for joining the podcast today. With that being said, Flint, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about TruckSpy, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I've been in transportation for a long time. I owned a trucking company, asset-based carrier. It sucked. Managing that business just was absolutely terrible. And so when I sold it, I set out to build a better technology product, kind of everything that I wish I had had when I was managing trucks out on the road. And so it's really where TruckSpy came from. And what we do is we're all the tech, hardware and software that you need in the cab of a vehicle, right? And we give the fleet manager ultimate visibility, not only on where vehicles are, but what they're doing and how they're doing it. So start thinking safety, like we can use AI to identify a driver looking at his cell phone, running a stop sign, running a traffic light. We can start unlocking all these operational efficiencies. Like, wait a second, why does it take Daniel 2 times longer to do that route than Steve, right? And so we really start surfacing all of these insights from your data so that you can help run your business more efficiently.
Got it. Thank you, Flint. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. So you said you used to own your own trucking company?
Yep, I sure did. So I was an engineer by training. I happened to get into the trucking industry. It was a little bit of a random thing. I met a guy at a bar, airport bar, was telling me all about this industry, how great it was. I was like 23, young, dumb, stupid, no money, and was like, hey, I think I could do that. So I went out and did it, and I kind of learned like pretty quick, right, as a 23-year-old, how to manage people, how to actually start and run a business, and it was a whole lot more challenging than it seemed. And at the time, like there were just really big gaps in the market, right? I mean, as a owner and manager of a trucking fleet, like I had 40, whether it's buses or trucks or like whatever it is, you're ultimately like the ultimate manager, remote work manager, because your drivers leave every day. You don't see them. You don't know what they're up to. A lot of times weeks go by. You don't ever get any FaceTime with them. And so it was really challenging. And I just took away from that, like, there's got to be a better way of doing this, right? Like, totally. I mean, and I just thought I had 40 trucks at the time. And I was like, how would I ever grow this to be 200 or 300 or 1,000? Like, obviously you're going to build the team, but like you're still left with this fundamental communication problem, right? That was my big learning. So yeah, look, learned a lot, sold the company, enjoyed it, and now building great products. So.
Got it. So Flint, so you started at 23, and at what age did you sell the company?
I was 27, I think. It was about 4 years.
Okay.
We grew super fast, started with 2 trucks, ended up with 40. So
wow. Awesome. And when did you get the breakthrough and the aha moment to say, well, I just got to switch industries?
Well, so I went back and got my MBA. So the timing worked out such that I sold this company. I had the opportunity to go get an MBA, and kind of through that process, right, I had time to reflect, to like think, okay, what did I do good? What was I good at? What was I bad at? Where were my blind spots? And I kind of realized, I also had as an engineer, like I had some software exposure. I kind of knew how software worked. And from that, I was like, I really think that this could have been done better, right? When you're in the trenches, right, you're just putting out fires every day. You're just grinding it out. You're not really thinking at that big picture. It takes time. It takes some, time to really look back. Hindsight's always 20/20, and reflect on what could have been done better. Where do I go next? And that was kind of that point for me in my career was, look, I got 2 years. I think I can do better. Let's throw some stuff against the wall, and let's see if it works, right? Are people willing to buy a better way to manage their fleet. And it turns out that they were. So,
so tell us a little bit more about that. So I noticed that you graduated from HBS for your business master, and then from there, how did you penetrate it into the market to come up with what it is TruckSpy today?
Yeah, great question. Well, I started super small, so it was like during that MBA, as I was thinking through this, that's a 2-year program. So that second year, I started writing some code. I put out this really simple product, and all I did was automate your IFTA. It was just super easy. IFTA was like one of those pain points that every transportation provider experiences if you cross state lines. It's not something that's really top of mind. And so I thought, look, this is like a pretty good low friction way to test the market. And I built a product that was really good at calculating IFTA. Like you had to do nothing. You just had to do nothing every quarter. You would just print it off, send it to the state, easy peasy, right? And so we started growing some customers on that. I mean, I had like 300 customers calculating their IFTA in our platform. And so then we just kept hearing feedback. It was like, hey, you guys are so good at doing IFTA. Can you also do this? Like similar data set, can you also do this for me? And so, okay, so we go out and do that. And then everybody subscribes to it. And then we get more feedback. Okay, hey, my GPS tracking sucks. Can you just start doing GPS tracking for us? Well, okay, sure. We'll figure out how to do it. And so, fast forward, 4 years now, almost 5 years. And the product now is what it is today, right? With dash cameras and AI and ELD and navigation that won't send you under low bridges and like all of this stuff that I could have never envisioned 5 years ago that we would have built.
Totally. So tell us about today. Like what's the product and the innovation that you're mainly most excited about, Flint?
Yeah, I would say, overall, the biggest thing that we do is all right, so if you're running a fleet, I'll back up, right? If you're running a fleet, and if you listen to this as a fleet manager, you probably already know what I'm about to say. You probably have like 5 different providers, right? So you've bought dash cameras from somebody, you've bought ELDs from somebody else, you've got probably GPS tracking from yet another provider, you've got a maintenance software. Like we just take all that stuff and put it in one place, right? We put it in one dashboard where everything ties together, and I can see my driver's safety behavior overlaid on top of their routes, overlaid on top of their speeding, right? For example, like we can start mashing all this data together to give you really interesting insights. So what I'm most excited about is 2 things. One, our ability to help manage safety. So safety is obviously a huge deal in transportation. And a lot of people are good at telling you that you had an accident. Hey, you had an accident. Here's the dash cam footage. Right now, it's your problem. We can do that, but we really want to live before the accident. We want to help you prevent the accident. And we're really good at that. If I look at our history, customers come to us, they've got, they're having 4, 5, 8 accidents a year, whatever the number is. And they roll out our system. They go to no accidents. They just don't have accidents anymore, at least at fault accidents. And it's because we're able to analyze or identify and analyze the behaviors that lead to accidents, like phone usage, running traffic lights, right, following too closely. Like we can identify all of that stuff in software and then help you automatically coach your drivers. Because a lot of times drivers just have these habits. Just like, Daniel, I'm sure you have a habit. I have habits, right? And it's just like what you do every day. You don't even think about it. But those things are actually that driving habits can actually be safety risks. So we identify those, we help the driver change their behavior and eliminate that risk, right? So that's number one. Number two, I get really excited about operational efficiencies. We're way short drivers. It's super hard to recruit drivers. It's hard to get trucks, right? Like you need to make the most out of the resources that you have at your disposal. And we help companies do that. A lot of times look at people like, for example, doing food delivery. Right? You're going to make 18 stops a day. Well, all of a sudden it really matters. Like if I can squeeze 5 minutes out of each of those stops, now you can make a 19th stop, right? And so we're all about how do you get more done with the resources that you have in a safe manner. That's really the 2 things that we are all about. We live and breathe it every day.
Got it. And Flynn, I forgot to ask you a question. Are you guys a private entity? Are you guys backed up by private equity? If you could elaborate a little bit more, please.
Yeah, so we're a private company backed by a group of investors, right? So I mean, typical software startup is kind of what we look like. I mean, VC plus private money.
Got it. Thank you, Flynn. And for all the listeners, especially for an organization of your size coming into the space, and I know you've been operating now for a while. As an example, we use Samsara. How did you guys stand out of your competition, especially with someone like Samsara?
Yeah, so Samsara is like a one size fits all, right? So, and they have a really good product. Don't get me wrong. I would say in this space, like they probably have one of the better products on the market. I think we beat Samsara in the safety analysis part of the program. We can just identify a lot of stuff that Samsara can't. So most dash cameras, well, I'll say this, pretty much all dash cameras except for us and Netrodyne, which is who we license some technology from. All right, they all live in this world of detecting a G-force, right? So that's what triggers the camera. If I slam on the brakes, I've triggered the camera. And then what they're doing is they're taking that footage and then analyzing it to say, well, you slammed on the brakes and you were distracted. You slammed on the brakes and you ran a stop sign. We don't require the slam on the brakes part of this for analysis, right? We say you ran a stop sign, you looked at your phone, you ran a traffic light. And so we're able to identify so many more behaviors, so many more observations of things that Samsara, Keep Truckin', Lytx, any of these other companies are going to miss because they all rely on that inertial trigger. That's probably the biggest thing that sets us apart.
Awesome. And what I'm hearing from you too, Flynn, is pretty much being proactive instead of reactive. And this is what a lot of transportation companies or trucking companies we try to emphasize, because at the end of the day, once an accident occurs, it's too late, right?
Yep, exactly. And look, you've got to be out ahead of it. Like I just see way too many fleets say, one, they don't even have video safety technology, or they buy dash cameras. They get the lowest cost provider because it's an expense item. They don't see the value. Like safety is one of these things. Like it's hard to put money into it and calculate your return. It's just not that straightforward. And so what we tell people is, look, you need to get the best technology on the market for video safety. It's going to save you many, many times over what you're going to pay for it. And then you need to invest the manual labor to analyze this stuff, understand what's going on in your fleet, and change your driver's behavior. And if you can do that, like I just read an article yesterday in Freightwaves, some company, 100 and something trucks, had an accident, $12 million settlement, they went out of business. They just, like we all know how these accident attorneys work, right? They're going to nail you to the cross. And so let's just avoid that altogether, right? Let's just coach our drivers to not have accidents, and then we never have to worry about that outcome. That's what we do.
Right. Yeah, I always, as a CEO, I always ask myself, what is it that is going to cost us to break a leg? But when it comes into safety, it could cost us to break our heads, not our legs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So Flynn, switching a little bit of subjects, I also noticed that you guys provide a fuel optimization as well within your products. Can you tell us a little bit about what is it that you guys do with the fuel optimization?
Yeah, so the first thing we did was go out and get a proprietary fuel card. So we built our own fuel card. It runs on the EFS network. So anywhere EFS is accepted, you can swipe our card. And then we went and negotiated with all these major chains, like think truck stops and even smaller mom and pop chains, to give our customers best-in-class discounts. So kind of the way the fuel market works, right, is if you're a really big fleet, you kind of have the leverage to go negotiate with Love's and say, look, we're going to pay whatever discount, right, you drum up. Maybe it's cost plus 10 or whatever it is. Well, we took all of our volume together and went and negotiated with these truck stops as if we're a fleet of 7,000 or 8,000 vehicles. And so we have literally best-in-class pricing. Like, only way you can beat our pricing is maybe if you're FedEx or UPS or Swift or one of these massive transportation companies. And so we then make that pricing program available to fleets of all sizes, whether you're one truck or 10 trucks or 100. And then on top of that, right, so discounts, like you're probably going to save 60, 70 cents a gallon on diesel. In the Northeast, it's more than that. In the Gulf region, it's less than that. It's kind of dependent on where you are in the country, which is pretty significant, right? So if you're going to go buy 100 gallons of diesel a day, I'm going to save you $70 a day per vehicle. Like this is pretty significant savings. And then on top of that, we allow you to optimize your routing based on fuel. So you can go in, right? We do dispatching. We know what your routes are. And so we also have hardware on the truck that knows how much fuel's in the tank, or the bus, or whatever vehicle it is. And so then we can just tell your driver, hey, you're going from Dallas to, I'm making stuff up, right? New Orleans, and you have half a tank of fuel. And so along your route, here's where you need to stop and buy diesel. And we just put it right in your turn-by-turn navigation. Just make it super easy for your drivers. You save the company a lot of money, right? The drivers still get their points at the truck stop or whatever it is, and everybody's happy.
Got it. Thank you, Flint. For all of these different services, is there availability for customers just to choose a specific product, or is it more like one size fits all, where once you got them into sort of your umbrella, they're more inclined to use all the products and services?
Yeah, so we do a la carte solutions. So obviously, what you would need, Daniel, with buses is different than what I would need, say, with like flatbed trucks, right? So we kind of customize the solution set for the customer. What we found, though, is that once you kind of get in the umbrella and you're using something from us, it makes sense for you to go ahead and do it all in most cases, unless, obviously, like if you don't need an ELD, you don't need an ELD. But if you're using our, let's say, dash cameras, well, you might as well go ahead and get on the fuel program, right? So we found that a lot of our customers use the vast majority of our services. Got
it. And switching a little bit of subjects, Flint, what are the most common challenges that you currently encountering in your industry, whether it's inflation, labor shortage? What is it that you guys are mainly encountering?
Yeah, I would say currently it's just the depressed freight market and general economic conditions. From a sales perspective, like we've seen over the last 6 months, that there just hasn't been a lot of confidence in the market. People may want to roll out our solution, but they don't know if they're going to be in business for 2 or 3 years, right? Especially on the lower size end of the spectrum. So that I think is definitely a headwind. I think that, headwind. I'm sorry. I think that the tailwind here is safety. Safety is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. The bigger these accident attorneys and the bigger that these lawsuits and jury settlements are, that's certainly a tailwind for us. Like the market is what it is. Like we all know, transportation is pretty cyclical. We all just kind of roll with the punches, right?
Totally. And that's very well said, Flint. Mainly, for example, in our sector, most of the industry is waiting more towards Q2 to get more certainty with the economic patterns, right? And once we have that certainty or that outlook of where we're going, as business owners, we will decide in which direction we're going to go into improving our fleets, putting more money into technology. But as a CEO of 100 big plus buses right now, I'm sort of in the same situation. I'm just waiting to see what the market is going to tell. Cool. And switching a little bit of subjects, what sort of innovations are you excited about in the next 2 to 10 years? So, for example, we typically talk about on the show about autonomous vehicles, flying vehicles, drones, and how is that going to impact your industry?
Yeah, look, I don't think we're going to see autonomous vehicles in any major way in the next decade. I think what we're going to see is technology continue to improve and the driver's life will continue to get easier. Here's my opinion, Daniel, and you can disagree with me. Until we see planes that don't have to have pilots, think about it. An airplane can fly itself, right? It has 3 degrees of freedom. There's no pedestrians. There's nobody running out in the middle of the road. There's no traffic. Until we see planes that can fly themselves and trains that can pilot themselves, like a train is literally on the tracks. We know where the train's going to go. We know the speed that it should be running. Like until we don't have to have engineers in planes or engineers in trains and pilots in planes, I don't think we're going to see true self-driving vehicles in any broad capacity. Now, I think obviously we're seeing people test stuff, and there's some areas, right? There's some select verticals that are starting to use them. I don't think it's going to be a broad market reality for a long time. And I think that the legal and the tort system is going to have to basically do a 180 and completely change in order for this to become a reality. So that's my opinion. With that said, I think that the driver's life will continue to get a lot easier over the next decade. I think we're going to see huge improvements, right? This like level 3, level 4 self-driving stuff ultimately is going to let the driver, right? It's going to make, one, for a safer experience, but two, it's going to, I think, make driving a lot easier of a job and it'll help ease the driver shortage, right? So all of a sudden, the driver's not so fatigued, and the public is safer and everybody's happier. The one big thing that I hope we see is a lot of our transportation providers, and I'm probably going to directly talk about trucking here. I think we've got to find a way in trucking specifically to get drivers home more often. And I think the big companies are really good at this. If you look at like FedEx Freight, UPS, these companies that have these huge networks, right? So instead of, say, I've got a load that needs to go from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles, instead of me saying, Daniel, you're going to take this load, you're going to spend 5 nights away from home in truck stops, right? They're relaying these trailers. So the guy leaves Charlotte, he meets a truck in Atlanta, they swap trailers. The Atlanta guy goes to Dallas, they swap trailers again, and eventually this trailer makes it all the way to Los Angeles. I really hope that trucking can find a way to do this at scale. And I don't know how that would work. Like, I think obviously the trucking industry is made up of a lot of really small players. I think that there's maybe some type of trailer swap arrangement. There's a lot of ways that this could be done, but I think that would be the single biggest thing to improving supply chain across the country, easing the driver shortage and improving safety all at the same time.
Totally. Right in the head, and especially about autonomous vehicles. I don't see it coming in the next decade, but we're it's like winter is coming, right? It's making really good progress. So totally. What about on the ESG and sustainability? What sort of solutions are you guys sort of in the near or long short term trying to improve when it comes into ESG and alternative fuel vehicles, right? Are you guys creating any sort of solutions? Because there's also a big demand from government agencies and municipalities to comply, right? So I'm wondering, Flint, from your perspective, what you guys are doing in regards to that point?
Well, we do a lot of stuff around fuel efficiency, right? Which I think is essentially ESG. Helping you get what you need done by burning less fossil fuels. At the end of the day, Daniel, this is a push. Like, the alternative fuel vehicles they're also just not there yet. I think bus transportation is a really good fit for it because you're running less miles, right? You can probably run electric or natural gas. You don't have a weight restriction, or you're not constrained by weight like you are in the general freight trucking world. Look, I think alternative fuel vehicles have a long way to go in order to, just like autonomous vehicles, to have broad market uptake. I think municipalities should start doing it because it's there for them. It has been for a while, right? Even if you look at going to CNG, there's big advantages there from a sustainability perspective versus diesel. Electric, Daniel, honestly, the jury's still out. Like, most of our electricity in the U.S. is we burn coal primarily and natural gas to make electricity. And then, you get about 40% loss in transmission by the time it ever gets to the vehicle. So, I'm not an energy, I'm an engineer by training, but I haven't done an energy balance on electric vehicles. My sense is that it's probably not as good as what media and government are making it out to be, is my sense.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Flynn, if there's a product there that you guys might be able to develop. Again, I'm just throwing ideas up in the sky. One of the projects that we're working on is to identify with these electrical vehicles that we have, how many carbon footprints we're saving per mile. It is sort of a calculator from several consultants that we're working on. So I'm wondering if you're already connected to a GPS unit and tracking the fuel consumption. How, if there's a calculator that you guys come up with to showcase and prove if there's an electrical truck or any sort of alternative fuel that they're using, how much are they actually saving in carbon footprint? Food for thought.
I'm sure we could calculate it. I've never had that request. I mean, we can pretty much calculate about anything. I think the biggest deal, though, with electric is where the electricity came from. That's the big deal with carbon footprint, because not all electricity is created equal from a carbon footprint perspective, right? Like, nuclear is great. I mean, you're not emitting carbon to generate nuclear power. But, I mean, come down to the great state of Texas, and most of our electricity is generated from coal, right? Like, you could arguably say, look, by the time I make the electricity and then transmit it to the vehicle and charge it over the grid, like, my carbon footprint might actually be more than if I had just burned diesel.
Correct. And not only that, the infrastructure that it costs to create these electrical chargers, right? And to keep up with sort of the infrastructure. And at the end of the day, who's paying for the bill? Especially in the private sector is a tough conversation.
Yeah. And look at California, Daniel. Look at California, right? They've got this big mandate. I don't remember what. All vehicles are going to be electric by 2030. I mean, these guys don't even have an electric grid that can run the air conditioners in the summertime, right? How do they possibly expect that they're going to charge every vehicle in California as an electric vehicle by 2030? I mean, they better start building some power lines. That's all I can tell them, Daniel.
Totally. And Flint, sort of to finalize this episode, what is your preferred business book that you recommend for all the listeners, and what is the best single advice you ever gotten?
Yeah, sure. So this isn't maybe directly a business book. I'll give you two. One is a super practical book that you should read if you haven't. Never Split the Difference. It's about negotiating. Excellent book. A lot of stuff you can take right from that and apply in your day-to-day, work. The second book I'd recommend, which I'm sure most people have read or heard of, is Ayn Rand, right? Atlas Shrugged. I think it's a really fun read. It makes you think about business, the world, the economy, government, all of these things, and kind of through a different lens, I would say. And it was written in like 1920. It's an old book. It's just a really good read. Classic literature, arguably maybe one of the best novels ever written. And then, I'm sorry, Daniel, what was your second question? I got off on books.
No problem. I could go on and on as well. The second question is, what is the best single advice you ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten as an entrepreneur is like run into the unknown, right? Like too many times entrepreneurs want to sit back and like build perfection. I think we just have to build, right? We have to build and we have to iterate fast. We have to see what works. And so we're always trying to run into the unknown here at TruckSpy. Like, well, we don't know if it's going to work or not, but we're going to try it and find out. And if it doesn't, then we'll find a way to fix it, right? And I think ultimately, like, that's how innovation is created. And this is why big companies aren't good at innovating, is there's too much bureaucracy.
Totally. I love it. One of the things that I discuss with my team is just being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? With the uncertain.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. So, Flynn, how can all the listeners learn more about TruckSpy, and where can they reach you at?
Yeah, our website, TruckSpy.io, is a great resource. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just search Flint Holbrook. I think me and my father are the only ones, so Flint like the rock. And I'll be the younger of the two Flint Holbrooks on LinkedIn. So
sounds good. So again, thanks for all the listeners to listening to the show today. We will add all the notes and how to contact Flint on the episode notes. Thank you again for joining the episode, and please make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you, Flint.
Cool.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Daniel. Yep.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Ground Transportation. We appreciate you coming along for the ride. If you found value in this episode and want to hear more, please make sure to subscribe to the show